Next is request approval of August 2018 tax collections update. Mike Matthews, our tax collector, is here with us this evening. Mike.
Good evening, Commissioners. Our delinquent balance as of August 31st, 2018 is $1,668 or $1,668,868.77. It's not a current one out because the bills hadn't gone out yet, and this was from August anyways. Looks like the bills will be going out by Wednesday, though, from what South Data is telling us. Possibly Thursday, but Wednesday to Thursday. They finally got done today.
All right. Commissioners, any questions of Mike? All right. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
And then the next item is first approval of the resolution ratifying the proclamation of a state of emergency and termination of proclamation. Going into the weekend with the reports about Hurricane Florence and the impact it could have on western North Carolina, we decided or I guess I could say I decided to declare a state of emergency for Haywood County. One of the reasons to do this, or the most important reason to do this, is in the event that you do not declare the state of emergency prior to the time of the need for additional workers to go out to respond. If you have not declared the state of emergency, then you would not be refunded or be able to receive federal monies for the additional work that your employees did provide. And so that is why after the state declared the state of emergency, a lot of the other counties fell in line and declared, and so did we. And fortunately, we didn't receive the brunt of the hurricane, and actually had pretty nice, slow, steady rain throughout that time. So I've got a resolution here, and as I read this resolution, Greg, if you'll come up, because I wanted you give just a little report on the weekend. So this is a resolution ratifying the proclamation of a state of emergency and termination of proclamation. Whereas Governor Roy Cooper, by Executive Order Number 51, declared a state of emergency for the state of North Carolina on September 7, 2018, due to the threat of a major hurricane impacting all 100 counties in the state. And whereas a proclamation of a state of emergency for Haywood County was declared on September 14, 2018, due to imminent threat of injury and/or loss of life and/or property during damage during hurricane conditions threatening Haywood County. And whereas, pursuant to the authority contained in North Carolina General Statute, Article 1A, Chapter 166A, North Carolina General Statute, Article 36A, Chapter 14 and Chapter 31 of the Haywood County Code of Ordinances, Chairman J.W. Kirkpatrick III of the Haywood County Board of Commissioners proclaimed the state of emergency within Haywood County. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Board of County Commissioners, number one, the aforesaid proclamation of a state of emergency declared on September 14th, 2018 is hereby ratified and approved this the 17th day of September 2018. And number two, as the state of emergency no longer exists in Haywood County, the above referenced proclamation of a state of emergency and all the restrictions and orders therein are hereby terminated effective 6 p.m. September 17th, 2018. Commissioners, do you have anything to add to that?
I think it was a good move. If we'd had the rainfall that's predicted, we'd be talking about the Pigeon today, flooding. And I think it's, 10 feet, and then if 10 inches of rain maybe on the parkway, and we got a flood.
Okay, so with that, I'll entertain a motion to approve the resolution that I just read.
So move.
Is there a second? Second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
And that passes unanimously. Okay. Greg, you're the Emergency Services Director. How about giving us just a report on what you know about what happened?
Okay. Thank you, Commissioners, and also special thanks to Mr. Upton for asking for us to come and give a short update about this, the events that occurred over the weekend. Also with me, he's got my back here, Sheriff Christopher and I have spoken about this this summary, and we've worked hard all weekend to make sure the citizens are prepared and also to protect them in the event some impact actually occurred. Initially, when we talked about doing this presentation this morning, I started making a chronological list of all little details and things, and I quickly realized that the most important part of emergency preparedness is the relationships that we have as county, city departments, our relationship with the community and the citizens we serve, and also our relationship with the departments that we work closer together during an emergency. Some of the folks that we don't always work together, like Lynn from Tourism Development, we worked with her, even that. So a lot of folks don't think about when a disaster is upon us or is threatening our community, we think about the traditional public safety responders, but sometimes you don't think about some of these other agencies that we do work with as well. So, from about September 7th, we started hearing about this storm, this tropical storm out called Florence. And emergency management officials like myself, we automatically start thinking about these things because that's my job. That's what I'm supposed to do is kind of worry about the threats or the hazards that might present us here in Haywood County. So I certainly started watching this, and the staff having communications with different departments, doing things like servicing generators, things that we don't think about maybe on a weekly basis, but things that we need to do. Servicing our vehicles, making sure they're refueled, radio communications infrastructure, mutual aid agreements. You commissioners allow us to have mutual aid agreements, but every single one of those agreements, it stipulates inside there that, it be eligible, or we enact that agreement during a state of emergency or during this type of event that we were anticipating. Emergency operations plans were shared. I know that you work with us closely. Every year we change 2 or 3 or more emergency operations plans that we have to dust off and make sure we're ready to activate. We looked at vulnerable landslide areas. As you know, in the mountains, when heavy rains occur, of course, we can see some landslide potentials there. So we identified certain places and, of course, went out and checked on those to make sure that there was no danger to the citizens there. These are the things that we do when it's weeks out, when we're looking at some type of tropical event. After that, looking at just the few days prior to, we start narrowing our focus when it comes to being prepared. Working with Health and Human Services Agency, making sure shelters and Red Cross teams are available. And I'm mentioning a few, but certainly won't mention all of them for your benefit and mine as well. But working with the county administration and department heads, working with the school system and the Haywood Community College, the hospital, working with the sheriff, the deputies, and also the 911 center to make sure that we are prepared. A lot of folks didn't know this, but the sheriff's 911 center actually took 911 calls from Brunswick County right there on the coast as well. So they're a backup to Brunswick County, and a lot of folks didn't know that. Public transit is a partner. Mountain Projects, where we make sure they have staffing and they have their buses ready to help perform evacuations if we needed to. So that's an agreement that we have with those that we had to dust off. Maintenance staff, working with them, making sure extra folks are on call. We appreciate them. You mentioned earlier that local motels actually accepted because we were not in the heavy, threat, of course, down like they were on the coast, but we took evacuees even from retirement facilities right here in our motels in Haywood County. And so we had to make sure that was addressed. And then on Friday, as the storm approached, Chairperson Kirkpatrick, along with mayors of several of the municipalities, did proclaim a state of emergency. And like the chairman said earlier, reimbursement eligibility for expenses, of course, is a major concern, something that we would take into account, but also the enacting of those emergency plans that we plan to do, and also additional staffing of departments that are critical in the county. We are authorized on a normal basis to have just so many employees working on a daily basis. Of course, during a state of an emergency, we're allowed to be able to do more in preparation and response to a potential emergency. So that was helpful to us. Throughout the weekend, you worry about things, you make phone calls. The sheriff and I talked, I don't know how many times, and several others in the room here, helping to make sure that we were prepared for these things. But to make a long story short, you know, a lot of trees down, a lot of minor short-lived power outages. I don't know if your power went out. I talked to someone in the Bethel community, and they said their power was out for about 4 hours. I think that was one of the longest durations that I saw personally. But these are the type of the things that we responded to, that the fire departments, law enforcement, rescue squad, those agencies, DOT that responded to those things. We got about somewhere between 2 inches on the northern end of the county, upwards to 6 or 7 inches on the southern end of the county. So I believe the steady rains and the lack of wind probably helped us quite a bit. We had sustained rain, but we never really had that torrential downpour for a long period of time like they did on the coast. And then in the aftermath, they asked me to speak just a little bit about Commissioner Upton. I think many of us may have family, many of us have friends down on the coast, praying for them and praying for recovery. Hey, we're not even near recovery yet, are we, down there? So the amount of rainfall that they had is certainly devastating. It is not over yet. I know, talking to the sheriff, he's sending some deputies down to assist some other counties down there. We're looking at other requests from the state to see what they may need, because many times when we have a disaster or a major emergency here in Haywood County, they're always quick to come help us, and we want to return that favor on this for this time. So if there's any type of assistance that the cities, the communities, or the county that can provide down there, I think that we would be obliged to do so. And that's all of my report, but if I'll take any questions if I need
Greg,
to.
let me follow up. I guess I've paid more attention to this flood than ever before, because my sister lives in Newbern, and I called her this morning. I knew more about her situation than she did. She was at the health department with a skeleton crew, and you know, no internet, no power, no TV. Telephone's all you got, so you really don't know what's going on. And that was historic flooding in Newbern. You know, they buy 2 rivers, and they backed up. You get all that rain. And my mother-in-law has a home in Havelock. She didn't get flooded, but 4 streets over, the whole neighborhood was devastated. People lost everything. And I was going to go down in 2 weeks, but I'm not sure I can get there, because probably 70 sheriff's going to be closed. 4 parts of 40's closed, parts of I-95's closed, and other roads. So, you know, it's going to be hard to get there. But I think the point we need to make tonight is, I'm sure there are a lot of people would like to help. And how does the public go about? Just like we might have a group of guys with boats. I'm just looking at 2 now that might want to come and go down and make some rescue. Those 2. I have a jet ski, so I can't help.
We can get you out there.
Yeah, well, that would be interesting. So who do they need to call if they want to donate or take a group down? I found out today, I didn't realize this, the North Carolina Baptist Men Association, they have a kitchen going to Lumberton, Lumber River, 20,000 meals a day they can produce. So I'm sure there's a lot of groups going down, just like the sheriff, and already down there that are contributing. So we'd like, I'm sure the newspapers would like to hear from those people that are going down as a group, because I'm sure all the churches, you know, are helping. And
Yeah,
Brandon said, I think his big church is helping out. So.
Oh, I'm sure they are. And what we really need folks to do is marry up with a faith-based organization like the Baptist Men or your church affiliation.
Or with the Methodists. And
That's correct. Or marry up with the Red Cross, the Salvation Army, or an affiliation like that. There are local chapters here in Haywood County and in the Asheville region. Please don't try to go down by yourself. As you said, it's very dangerous.
Get there.
You can't get there. When you get there, you're going to be met by the National Guard or probably a sheriff's deputy or another officer that's not going to let you get down there because it's too dangerous. but these agencies have already got established relationships with the communities down there that will allow them to have access to certain areas to drop off supplies or to provide certain services that you may be able to offer to them.
Well, Greg, you made a good point. The water, knowing that region like I do, the water's not at its highest point. You got to drain all that water from Raleigh, Fayetteville, got to come through Kinston, all that area, and so the water's going to get higher.
You're exactly right. So as a mountain fella like myself, I'm used to water going downhill. And if you've ever been to a hurricane on the coast and seen the actual Neuse or the Pamlico River flow uphill back towards Raleigh during the eye of the hurricane, it's just
Because
crazy.
you got the storm pushing the water in and you're getting all the rain. So
Right, and then a week or so later, the secondary flood happens.
Right,
So
good point.
that's why the disaster is still yet to be defined, because additional flooding will occur in the coming days and weeks. Yeah.
So thank you for all you do and for getting ahead of us and taking care of some things. So
Thank you very much, but I truly can tell you there are plenty of really, really good agencies here in the community, and all we do is pull them together and let them work together as a team. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Appreciate you. All right, that's it with for the consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Kevin, second. Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, and that passes unanimously. Next, we'll move to old business. First item of old business is continuation of discussion of payments in lieu of taxes, funds, distributions to fire departments that respond to calls on federal lands. Last Monday evening, this is a discussion that we've been having some. The payments in lieu of taxes are PILT money that we receive from the federal government. But last Monday evening, we went down to Crusoe, Brandon and I and Mr. Mashburn, and met with their fire department and discussed their particular situation as far as the number of calls that they have and how they respond to emergencies on federal lands. I have also spoken with Scott Sutton with the Maggie Valley Fire Department, who has given me some numbers on the number of calls that they make on the Blue Ridge Parkway and in the Great Smokies. Other fire departments which do so are Lake Logan, Jonathan Creek, Fines Creek, and Sawnook, along with Maggie and Crusoe. And then also our Haywood County Rescue Squad responds to emergencies on federal lands. So the monies that the county receives each year change from year to year, and they have been increasing. And so one of the requests from the fire departments was, can we receive some of this money? Because the payment in lieu of taxes is for many things. It's not just for fire departments to respond, obviously, because it basically takes the place of Haywood County receiving tax money from those properties. So it's not just for these calls, but the fact of the matter is a large part of the use of the federal lands calls for emergencies because people have car wrecks, people get lost in their search and rescue, and so the fire departments are expending money on responding to those things, along with the rescue squad, that they don't get paid for, or they don't receive from their tax base. So I don't know, Joel, if you and Brandon have anything to add to that. I've got a proposal of how we can deal with this. I know we don't have all the numbers down exactly on the number of responses, but I think I've got a proposal. I've discussed it independently with some of the commissioners in regards to providing a percentage of the PILT money to set aside to be distributed to the fire departments and the rescue squad based on the calls that they make. So after that statement, I'll ask if anybody has any questions or any comments on that.
I guess the only comment I would have is that you stated that developing a formula is one thing, trying to decide exactly how to apply that formula and what calls you would apply that to is going to be something that would still have to be worked on. But at least if you decide that you are willing to use some of the PILT money for this purpose and decide how much of the PILT money you're willing to use for that purpose, then we can start working on a breakdown of how those funds would actually be distributed.
When we met with Crusoe, the Crusoe Fire Department came up with a percentage on their own, which was 20% of the PILT money. And when I first heard of that number, I thought, well, maybe that might be a little much. But then when they actually spoke to us about the calls that they made, the amount of money that they expend, and I'm sure the other fire departments, and I speak of Crusoe because I believe that all the other fire departments would agree that Crusoe probably expends more money on federal land calls or more time on calls or has more calls than any other fire department. So I think it was a good spokesperson for them. But I do believe that if we could set aside 20% of the PILT money to be divided between the fire departments and the rescue squad, based on the number of calls that each one makes onto federal lands, that would be a fair distribution. That we not just say, okay, you have certain lands in your area, so you get a certain amount of money. We just base it on the calls that they respond to, and it may be a simpler formula as well. And it will actually, to me, it actually pays the department back who actually responds to the call instead of a department who may or may not respond to a call.
Yeah, I mean, just to add to what Kirk said, right now, those departments do not have to respond, or I believe that's a true statement from what I've been told, but they don't have to respond outside their district. They're choosing to do so. And most of the time when they go up on federal land, if it's up on the parkway or wherever to answer a call, it's usually not one of the taxpayers that's in that district. So the monies that's coming in, this PILT money, I think is some money that could be used to cover some of those expenses. So I've been a big supporter of that and us paying back some of that, because the taxpayers in that district are the ones that are having to cover those expenses and those costs. So I think it's important that we use some of that money, because it is payment in lieu of taxes, to cover some of their expenses, because they do us a good job. If that was my mom or my brother or somebody in my family up there, I'd want them to respond and take care of the situation. So I think it's important that we try to take care of them. This is a volunteer fire department, which all these are, and most of them do it for free. They get up in the middle of the night to go answer these calls for us. So I think in a show of appreciation, we could at least give them a percentage of that back. So.
How do y'all feel, commissioners?
Yes.
Yeah, they probably are one of the least. I mean, their tax base is probably not as strong as some of the other parts of the counties, and they're having to make some pretty expensive calls. It takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of things. But there was a little mention the other day or whatever that we're making a lot of calls to a particular area that one of the other counties is getting some of that. So I'd like to see, how do we go about trying to, if they're not making the calls and we are, that money needs to come to us. So how do we do that? How can we do that?
And I think we had some discussion with Crusoe regarding the Pisgah Inn. There's a portion of the Pisgah Inn, which I think is the main inn, is within Transylvania County. And so what I would like to do is, one, just go ahead and move forward and approve 20% of the PILT monies tonight, so the fire departments know and the rescue squad knows that they are going to receive some monies from that, and then have Julie look at the budgets, because we want to base this on the 2017 calls. We'll look at your 2017 calls, and in the 2018 year reimburse or say, here's 20% of the money. It's divided per the number of calls, and we've got the list of the number of calls, and then we'll send that check to the fire departments and the rescue squad accordingly. What I'd like to do is approve that formula, but then look at the budget, because I know we have budgeted some monies for this, and want to see if we can go ahead and if we can budget the entire amount needed to pay for the 2017 calls, which is, I think, $77,000.
That was based on the numbers they gave us.
Well, that's 20% of the PILT money.
Yeah.
We won't know what the number of calls were until we get those number of calls, but
77.
But see if we can get to 77. I know we've budgeted some money, but I don't think we've budgeted the 77. We'll have to go somewhere else to get that money if we choose to do that. How do you all feel about that?
Say that again, because you were talking that way.
And it's hard to talk.
Yeah.
So we've budgeted, I think it was around $35,000 in our budget this year because we knew we were going to do something with the PILT monies for the fire department.
So that's about 10%.
Right.
So we'd have to budget another
We'd have
35.
to find another 40, right around 42,000 to equal the 20%. That would be 20% of the PILT money that we received last year.
And that's what the fire department's asked for.
And that's what the fire department's requested. And I think that's fair.
Well, and Brandon's right. The taxpayers in Crusoe are the ones really paying for the brunt of that. And with an increase in their rate, I don't know what their rate is. It's probably not at the
10 cents.
Is it? Okay.
You know,
And that's why.
And two, it might be some equipment they can't buy because they're using up money on cost.
Yeah. And I was curious too, did y'all just happen to check with other counties to see what they did, if they did anything? Like Jackson or Buncombe or Swain?
I haven't checked.
Swain would be a good one.
Swain would be a good one to ask. And then I just thought maybe they do something and maybe have something figured out. I was just asking. I just thought, I wonder what the other counties do because they may not do anything, but
Well,
there might be something to check on.
I thought that's kind of how the discussion got started because there was other counties that were actually.
No, one of the firemen was responding to one of the calls. He's actually one of the board members, and there's some federal guy that was up there, and the conversation got struck up. I mean, the comment, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Kirk, but he said, "You guys are being paid to be up here," and the board member looked at him and said, "No, I don't think that's right," and so that's what initiated the conversation. So.
Okay.
So I guess the question is, do we want to approve the 20%? And then have do we want to approve 20% of what came in on the last payment in lieu of taxes, which would be approximately 20% of the last payment would be approximately $77,000 or so. Do we want to approve that, or ask Julie to go find that money? Because we're going to have to find about $42,000 to add to the 35 budgeted to distribute that. Or do we want to say
I'm okay
stick
with going
with
ahead. I mean, we've got a healthy fund balance, so, you know, it'd be okay if we could find the amount. I'm sure Julie will do that, but
Yeah.
I'm okay with moving ahead.
That's what I would like to do. I'd like to go ahead and let's start in 2017 for the calls, take the 77,000 and divide it and distribute it to the fire departments, and then we can do that from here on out and make sure that we budget that. You're going to have to talk something.
I'm sorry. I can bring a budget amendment back the next meeting
Okay.
that reflects just that.
But we've not decided exactly how to do it, right?
I think we need to look at the calls. I think one of the issues that we had is, you know, what is considered a call, and I think one of the things if you respond, if you actually respond to federal lands to a call, I think that's probably should be defined as a call.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, even if it's a false alarm, as they said they do have a few, they still have to respond. I mean, the sheriff knows this. Any call that you get, you've got to respond, whether it's a false alarm or not. And they still have to take those trucks up and down that mountain, and people have to go. So I think a call is a call. I mean, that's just my opinion.
Well, when we were, having some more discussions about this, you know, we were talking about maybe having a particular amount per call up to the 20%. But what I'm hearing now is we're just doing 20%, and then if they have 10 calls throughout, that's how that's how they get it. They split the 20%. There's no specific amount per call. Right. Is that what you're saying? Okay.
And I think if we tried to dig down into the weeds too much on this, you're going to find, you're going to have calls where there's been one call where there's a motor vehicle accident and they're up there for a couple hours and they're gone. There's going to be another call where there's a search and rescue for days.
You're right. We spend all our time trying to decide what to pay for.
And I think the fire departments, it is their mission to serve people and to save people and to help people. And I think by this statement, they're just asking for some relief, whatever help that we can provide. And Crusoe came up with that request. And
how do we decide how much they get? Each one of them get. That's what I don't know.
Well, for example, you take 77,000. If there's 125 calls, then you divide the 77,000 by 125 calls. At the end of the last year.
Okay.
So we'll know how many calls they've
Crusoe
received.
got 70 and Johnson Creek got 10 and Fines Creek got 5. It'd be divided up like that.
Correct.
Ratio it out, kind of.
Right. Well, you divide it all up and then take the total number of calls and then pay each fire department based on the number of calls that they
Divided
do.
into 77. Okay.
So it could be $1,000 a call. It could be $400 a call,
Right,
depending on how many they have.
Right.
That's right.
I think that's correct.
Right.
And they understand as well that there may be years that they may not get nothing, so.
Yeah, if we don't get PILT money, we don't get money, they don't get money. If we get $200,000 less,
They get
then they
20%.
get 20%.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so I'll entertain a motion that we approve the fire departments that respond to calls, and I'm not going to name any specific ones because there may be a fire department that's not Crusoe, Lake Logan, Jay Creek, Fines Creek, or Sawnook that does respond. It's not likely, but any fire department or the rescue squad that responds to a call will receive a portion of the 20% of the PILT money that is set aside for calls, and it will be based on, all right, let me scratch that motion. Withdraw it. I'll entertain a motion to approve that 20% of the PILT money be set aside for the distribution to the fire departments and the rescue squad responding to calls on federal lands per call.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Can I mention one thing? Would it be appropriate if we brought a resolution next time that kind of spelled this out and had the formula within the resolution so you could be clear?
Yeah, I think so.
If you want to, that'd be fine.
With the budget
Actually,
amendment,
I
along with the
don't.
budget
I think I'm
amendment.
pretty clear on it myself.
Yeah.
No, that'd be fine if you want to draft it up. We can
Andy's
approve
got
that.
a look there.
So do we need to table or?
No, we don't need to table it. We're going to vote on
next
it right
week?
now.
Okay, good.
Let's just vote on that, and if it needs to be clarified, we'll
Just
clarify
get the formal explanation and budget amendment next time. It's already
Right.
approved. Yeah.
Okay. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, and that passes unanimously. I know that the fire departments will greatly appreciate that. And the rescue squad.
And rescue.
We met with the rescue squad last week too, didn't we, Joel? So
So
we met with the rescue squad last week
So
as well.
they respond sometimes too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, especially with the rescues. Next is request consideration for approval of engagement letter with McHugh Fuller Law Group, Barron and Budd, to pursue opioid litigation. Last meeting, we had some discussion regarding the opioid litigation that's ongoing. As you know, it's a national lawsuit, and we had some information provided to us last time, and I actually forgot all the information that I had with me this evening. But there are suits. There are approximately 4 different attorney groups that are instituting suits against the distributors and manufacturers of opioids in regards to the opioid crisis. We've had discussions in closed session regarding this. as well as openly. I have spoken with Mike Fuller, with McHugh Fuller, about the lawsuit. I think last time we discussed the pros and cons of being involved in the lawsuit. And to me, what it comes down to is I certainly don't want to miss out. I don't want Haywood County to miss out on any funds that would be available, and that is in the instance that this is settled and there are funds that are recoverable, or that there is a lawsuit and the case is won against the manufacturers and the distributors. Ms. Parrish spoke about the money, and we're going to have this money. Well, it's litigation, and I can tell you, I've been involved in lawsuits and I've been in front of juries, and they do crazy things. And so there's no money that's just set aside there right now. There's no promise of any money. There's the anticipation of that, and a lot of that's based on the fact that there's been other suits before, like the tobacco lawsuit, that there will possibly be that. But in any instance, I think the commissioners, we discussed in closed session last time that you did want to enter into an engagement letter with Mr. Fuller and his group. And I believe that Scott Taylor came to speak with Chip early on about this. He's a local attorney that brought Mr. Fuller to us. And so with your permission, I will have them provide to me the engagement letter or the engagement fee agreement, which would provide that they receive 25% of whatever they recover, that the county would not be responsible for any costs of the litigation. And if you all approve, I will execute that. First, I'll have Chip take a look at it, make sure it's in the legal form needed, and I'll go ahead and execute that for us to join in the lawsuit. I believe there's a resolution that will also require us, or they want us to pass as well. So how do you all feel about that?
Well, I think, personally, being a Republican, I don't like for lawyers to get a lot of money. And this is what that's going to do. And it's going to drive up drug costs when you have these lawsuits. But I've got to put on my county commissioner hat and do what's best for the county. Mm-hmm. And I don't want us to miss out on potential litigation. I know there's a lot of, I've been a commissioner for a good while, and I can remember when the meth was a big deal and seeing the lives destroyed by that. And it's almost like you see these, and then I started hearing about opioids a few years ago, and then we approved the Narcan, I think, is what they give them. Mm-hmm. We had, and I was like, what is that? What is it? I didn't even know what opioids were, because I remember asking Jim Presley, what is an opioid? Because I've never taken them. But it seems like a lot of people who go, just maybe have a broken bone or something, then all of a sudden they get addicted to this, and it's the personal cost is really huge. And so, put my county commissioner hat on and knowing if the county misses out on some funding that we can, like Ms. Parrish talked about, partner with other counties and be able to get counseling or whatever. I don't know what they need, but I think it would be smart to do that, because other counties have done it. And politically, I'm like, but being a county commissioner, I'm like, no, we need to do this. And the good part, I did have a call from somebody that was talking about how much we pay them, but we're not paying them anything. It's just if they win something, they get something. Right. But the lawyers, that is, and if they don't win, then they don't get anything. So I want everybody to totally understand that. We're not putting out any money at all, is what they told us when they were here last, or some lawyers did. So I think it can be a win-win for everybody, hopefully, and I hope that, more than anything, that these folks get some help.
Yeah, just to add to that, Kevin, you kind of said it well, but I had a lot of questions. Is probably one of the reasons that I've waited as long as I have. But after the questions were answered, I even sat down with Ms. Parrish in my office, and we've had several conversations. But after the questions were answered, my concern was us having to spend some upfront money, which we've learned we don't have to now. We have nothing to lose and everything to gain. So, and we all know it's a big problem we have here in the county. I think every one of us probably knows somebody or have somebody in our family that's been affected by this. And it's a big issue and a big problem. So I want to do everything we can to try to fight this off and try to get something good out of it. So I'm in support of it.
And I agree with Kevin and Brandon. There's so many lives destroyed by opioids. You know, I heard the governor speaking one day. He said if you take one Percocet, there's a 16% chance in your lifetime you will get addicted. So I'm thinking, you know, what if you take more than one? You know, your chances are greater. So we have to do something.
Yeah. It is a terrible thing that we are faced with throughout our community. You hear about it every day. It's like you said earlier, Brandon. I mean, but I don't know that any of us have sitting up here hadn't known someone or been touched by someone, family members, neighbors, or whatever. And the issue that you have, it's a long-term recovery from this stuff. And you know, we're in a situation where you got your state cutting funds for mental health and stuff that really is in a time when we really need additional funding and additional things to try to fight this epidemic. And, you know, this is an opportunity, if it happens and there is money to come back, that maybe we can end up providing those necessary resources to put together recovery and, you know, mental health situations and all to help fight this thing. And it's costing us now. You know, it's really costing us now. And so.
Yeah, and to add to what Kevin said, I mean, there are so many variables to this lawsuit. I could sit up here and discuss them over and over, the pros and the cons and the defenses and the claims and, you know, what's right or wrong and who's going to bear the burden in the long run. But at the end of the day, I certainly don't want Haywood County to miss out on those monies. And so if there are monies available, and the suit is one, I certainly don't want Haywood County to not have those monies. And the same premise that sometimes when we take grants from the federal government, we say that's free money, but you know, I look in the back of my back pocket and it's not free money. It came from somewhere, and you know, essentially this is some of the same thing. So at any rate, I'll entertain a motion that the board allow me to, actually, you're all going to have to sign it. Everybody's name's on it. So if the board allow me to enter into a fee agreement with McCoo Fuller Law Group and Scott Taylor to represent us in the opioid litigation. And then my fellow commissioners will execute that fee agreement and resolution as well after approval by Mr. Mashburn and Mr. Killian after their review.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
No.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, and that passes unanimously. No, I'd rather stick to what we do, and if I allow you, then I should allow people who have an opposing view.
I sense you're a happy lady, so
But you can come back next time.
I sense you're a happy lady, so.
Just try to be fair to everybody, Ms. Parrish. Okay, we'll move to new business, and next is request approval of waiver of occupancy tax penalty for OHM SAI Hospitality in the amount of $433.81. Lynn Collins, our TDA Executive Director, is with us.
A problem with a lot of the occupancy tax payments getting in on time, and it's a matter of they mail it on time, but we are having trouble with the postal system postmarking the envelopes. This is a consistent problem, as the finance office can attest to. And so you have a copy of the envelope in your packet. And so the TDA Finance Committee and the TDA Board looked at this and are recommending approval of the occupancy tax penalty waiver request in the amount of $433.81. It was mailed in time. It just was not postmarked and was received in the finance office on Monday, the 23rd.
Your board has already approved this waiver?
They have approved recommending to you
Okay,
Yeah.
they recommended
the
it.
waiver.
Yeah, it was before the board the last meeting and discussed, and it's kind of tough with no postmark, and it's not the people's fault. I mean, I'm bad about waiting to the 20th to mail a sales tax or something. You know, of course, I'm not getting any late charges, so I'm wondering how the state's operating because, you know, I don't see the envelope when it gets there, whether it's got a postmark or not. But be interesting to know if that's getting to be the norm now, where the post offices are not putting postmarks on it.
This seems to have happened once they changed the sorting facility. They closed it down in Asheville, and now everything has to go to Greenville. So that seems to be where the problem is.
Do we have a contact at Department of Revenue?
The Department of Revenue.
Just, you know, if they have issues, because I mean, this is kind of a recurring problem.
It is.
I mean, you know, I sit on that board, and we're seeing this quite about every month. We're seeing, and it's generally people that pay that's never had any issue, and you know, so we're all constantly having to redo this. So it'd be nice to know how they're handling it, because you know, maybe it's you may have to extend it to due on the 20th, but it's got to be in the office by the 25th or something.
And this property has not had any, the property owner has not had any other previous penalty waivers.
Mm-hmm. So, any other questions? I'll entertain a motion that we approve the waiver of occupancy tax penalty for OHM SAI Hospitality in the amount of $433.81 as requested by Lynn Collins.
So move.
Is there a second? Brandon, second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, and that passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you.
Next is request approval to enter into a contract with Dr. Kristen Hammett to serve as the county veterinarian in the amount of $28,800 annually to be paid from budgeted funds. Doyle Teague, our Animal Services Director.
Good evening, Commissioners.
Evening.
What we have in front of you is a continuation of Dr. Hammett's service as a county veterinarian. She's served as a veterinarian since around 1993 for the county. Previously, she was affiliated with the Animal Hospital of Waynesville, and she's retired. And that's basically what this agreement addresses, is that she started her own PLCC or LLC. And she's got her own business now, and we are primarily her only client, and should stay that way.
Okay. Commissioners, you have any questions?
Doyle, did you say she's been working since 1993?
Yes,
That's a long time.
it is. She's
Does a good job, too.
She does.
Her heart is in her work. I mean, you can see that.
It is.
Okay. If there's no other questions, I'll entertain a motion that we approve the contract with Dr. Kristen Hammett to serve as our county veterinarian with the amount of $28,800 annually.
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, and that passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doyle. Next is request approval to enter into a contract with Precision Rescue Vehicles of Arden, North Carolina for the remounting of 2 ambulance bodies in the amount of $299,996 to be paid from budgeted funds. That's not Travis Donaldson. That's
not
Greg
Travis,
Shooting,
Sorry
our
about that.
Emergency Services Director.
Yeah, so the only difference here is just letting you know that it's in the budget already. We went through the bid process with Julie's guidance, and this was the lowest responsive bidder that did not have any exceptions on the bid process. And they're already building ambulances for us, so they're already a vendor for us.
Okay. Commissioners have any questions? All right, if not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the contract with Precision Rescue Vehicles of Arden for remounting 2 ambulance bodies in the amount of $299,996 to be paid from budgeted funds as it was the lowest responsible bid.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, and that passes unanimously. Next is request approval of new job classification of Deputy Veteran Service Officer. Joel Mashburn, our interim county manager.
I do have a recommendation to the board to create a new class in the Veteran Service Office. A little bit of background on this is in May of 2018, the HR director received a request from Stephen Allred, the director of the Veteran Service Office, to upgrade the position of Assistant Veteran Service Officer to Veteran Service Officer. After much consideration and discussion between me and the HR director, it is the recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners that it create a new classification, but not a new position or an upgrade of an existing position. This action would be in accordance with Article 2, Section 1 through 6 of the county personnel policy. If the board concurs, this will allow the department head to recommend to the manager that the person in the assistant position be promoted to the deputy position, but it does not eliminate an existing classification, nor does it usurp the responsibility and authority of management to administer the compensation and pay plan. The need for this higher classification is to have another person in the department with much of the same authority as the director, so that there is not a delay in being able to process claims in a timely manner in the absence of the director. In order for someone else to have the authority to access the databases of the Veterans Administration, they must have a personal identification card, or referred to as a PIV, and they must be certified by the National Association of County Veteran Services and the North Carolina Division of Veterans Affairs. With this certification and identification, a person will have access to all the records of the veteran and will be able to file claims on behalf of the veteran and to do follow-ups as necessary. However, to be able to receive these certifications, a person must attend several hours of training and testing and must prove themselves competent to perform at an exemplary level. It is the recommendation that the Board of County Commissioners create a classification of Deputy Veterans Service Officer at a pay grade 65. This is 3 grades up from the pay grade of the Assistant Veteran Service Officer and is comparable to other classifications in the county and with other counties with positions similar to this. So the recommendation again is that you create a new class, and that classification would be Deputy Veteran Service Officer, and it would be at a grade 65. The current Assistant Veteran Service Officer is at a pay grade 62. Again, you're not being asked to approve a promotion. That will go through the process that is laid out in the classification and pay plan. But you're asked to create a new classification so that there is a classification that a person can be promoted into. Again, no new position. We're not eliminating a classification because you never know when you may need that classification, but it does create a new one that would allow for a promotion if it is recommended and if it is approved according to the plan.
Joel, the bottom line is with 2 people that can look at claims, we'll always, if they work the schedule right, we'll always have 1 person there to handle anybody coming in for claims, right?
Yes, currently, if a person comes in and the person that has the PIV, that certification is not available, that claim cannot be filed until that occurs. The person cannot even go into the database and look up information about that client until they have that, that certification.
Commissioners, have any questions of Joel?
What's the difference in the pay scale for 62 to 65?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the
The
question.
difference in the pay, what's percentage?
It's normally from one grade to the other, it's approximately 5%. So we're going up three grades, so it would be approximately 15%. If indeed that occurs.
Right.
But all we're asking you to do at this time is to approve the classification.
All right. Did you have something?
Well, Joel, you're a veteran. Do you think
Yes.
this is needed? I guess you do. As a
You think
veteran,
it's needed?
As a veteran, do you think it's needed?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, that's
Absolutely.
what okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Because a lot of these guys coming in, you know, their health might be deteriorated to the point they might not have much time to run claims through. I know of a situation like that, so.
And it's not just the veteran that comes in. Many times it's the family of the veteran. The veteran may already be deceased, but the family is eligible for some veterans' benefits. So this would allow another person in the organization to be able to process those claims.
Okay. All right. If there's no other questions, I will entertain a motion to approve a new job classification. That job classification being Deputy Veterans Service Officer, as explained and presented to us by our interim county manager, Joel Mashburn.
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, and that passes unanimously. Next, we got request approval of agreement between Haywood County and Haywood Regional Medical Center to provide non-emergency ambulance transportation of patients, costs reimbursed by Haywood Regional Medical Center. We got Greg Shuping with us.
Thank you. This agreement is necessary between Duke Life Point, Haywood Regional Medical Center, and Haywood County in order for us as an EMS agency to be able to transport patients from the facility, the hospital, to other places and be able to bill that hospital for our services. Without an agreement, we're not able to do that. We have this agreement was initiated by Haywood Regional Medical Center, but then it was bounced back and forth from our office as well as the county attorney, the county manager, and the Duke Life Point corporate offices before coming to an agreement that you have before you here that we feel would be an acceptable agreement for us to follow to be able to provide these services.
Okay, so you're good, Chip, with it? Joel, you're good with it? All right. All right, I'll entertain a motion. Oh, sorry. Any commissioners have any questions about this agreement? All right, if not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agreement between Haywood County and Haywood Regional Medical Center to provide non-emergency ambulance transportation of patients and cost to be reimbursed by Haywood Regional Medical Center, the agreement being attachment 8.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, and that passes unanimously. I did not change the agenda this evening for such, but I know that this is Mr. Mashburn's last official meeting because our next meeting will have a new county manager. Mr. Mashburn served with us since last October, thank God. I'd been serving for about 3 weeks and I'd had enough of it. I was ready to hand over the reins.
Yeah, the board's about to fire the manager.
Yeah. About to fire me. No, but at any rate, it was, we certainly were very, very fortunate to have you come with all your experiences to serve as the interim county manager and get along with all the folks like you have I've attended many meetings with you at places, and he's been a great spokesperson for the county and a good mediator as well in trying to, fine-tune to find out what's really needed by certain groups and people. And I certainly appreciate you serving. I mean, I know you got paid for it, but we really appreciate you serving as interim county manager. I don't know if the commissioners have anything they would like to say, or if you want to say something.
One comment that stands out in my mind, I'll tell you how good Joel is. We heard about him, we invited him in, and then hired him.
Same night.
Same night. I've never seen that happen. So
or you were desperate.
Joel, we're just sorry that we didn't have you a long time ago. It's our loss that you weren't here for a long time. Thank you.
Hey, Joel, I was wondering, had you made application here before for the county manager? I was just wondering. I had a commissioner, a long-time commissioner say that.
You want me to tell you behind what really?
Yeah.
The real story.
3 of my classmates were elected to county commissioner on this board at one time. And I had just taken a new position as the county manager in Iredell County. And so some of you may know that Ed Russell had one thing in common with me, is we both liked ice cream. And there was a place in Statesville called Elliott's. And every time Ed Russell would go to Raleigh, they'd stop off at Elliott's and get ice cream. And one time they were coming back, and they came in to talk to me, because that's when they had decided that they were going to change and go to a commissioner-manager plan. And they wanted to know if I would be willing to come, or interested. They didn't say willing. They said, will I be interested in coming to Haywood County to be their first county manager? And of course, I would have loved to have been able to do that, but I had just started a new position in Iredell County, and it just wasn't the right thing to do. So I gave up the opportunity to come back to Haywood County at that time, and of course I ended up staying 23 years in Iredell County. Never thought I would have an opportunity to come here and actually be, even for just almost a year, the county manager for Haywood County. But it's been my pleasure, it's been an honor to be able to do this. And I have never worked with a board that I enjoyed working with any more than this board. I've never worked with a staff, administrative staff and department heads that I've enjoyed any more than working with the administrative staff and the department heads here. I guess if there's a regret, that I didn't have a chance to get to know more of the people. But there's over 600 or about 600 people, somewhere around there. And I've always prided myself in being able to try to get to know as many of them as I could. And I just wasn't able to do that with the amount of time that I could commit to the job and the amount of time that I had. So if I had a regret, that was it. But it was certainly not been a regret of mine to come and have an opportunity to work here during this past few months. And I think you've selected a person that will serve the county well, that the department heads will be able to work with, that you'll be able to work with, that will represent this county well when they are out at different functions and meetings that they would go to. So I think you've made a good decision, a good call there. But I'm just glad that you just, for whatever reason, and it may have been that the chairman was just tired of having to sign all those papers, that he wanted to get somebody in here real quick, and I happened to be available.
You caught us at a weak moment.
But I do appreciate that opportunity. And before I finish, I do want to say, though, that my wife is here tonight, and I wanted to express to her my appreciation, because just when she thought that I'd finally decided to retire and we can do some of those things that we'd been planning to do, I asked her if she would mind if I would just try one more time. And so she was certainly agreeable to that, and I appreciate her willingness to do that. But again, I just want to say thank you very much, all of you, for an opportunity to serve my home county. And I'm a taxpayer here too, by the way. and so, but I am not a voter. I will say that. But we do own property here, and we plan on continuing to own property here for as long as we can afford it. So
We heard that last part.
Well, we certainly appreciate that all you've done for us here in Haywood County.
Yeah, it's been a real pleasure having an opportunity to work with you. I appreciate the good, kind words that you have to say about this board. I think we've all got along very well and work hard to forward Haywood County, and I appreciate you noticing that and telling us that. And so I want to thank you very much, and I want to tell one small little story. When we were kind of looking, I'm at the ball game, calling the ball game, and I get a text from Kirk, and he says, I talked to Joel. He said, he's interested. What do you think? I said, get him there Monday night. So, okay. And that's what happened. That's exactly what happened. Yeah.
Yeah, that was quick.
Just a comment from me. I am new to politics and new to the board. I've only been at the board almost 2 years now. And just seeing your wisdom and knowledge that Joe has brought to the county and the management style and skills has even taught me a lot. So I appreciate you and who you are and what you stand for. So we thank you for all you've done for us.
thank you.
Yeah, I wanted to say too, Joel, I really appreciate you coming. I appreciate your wife letting you come. I mean, we should thank her more than you. It was, your wisdom was just, it was amazing. And I never had any doubts that, we never had any issues. No. Joel took care of what needed to be taken care of. And the one thing that he really helped us with was hiring this new county manager. Because I was really leaning, I didn't tell him this, but I really leaned on what he thought and what he saw in all the candidates. And so he was a big part of this. And for us to have that kind of experience to come in and help us, I think just was another big plus. So I thank you for all the work that you've done here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. We don't have anything else on the meeting. We don't even have a closed session tonight. What about that?
Wow.
Anything else anyone want to add? All right. If not, I'll entertain a motion that we adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.